really appreciate you being with us tonight, and hope you'll come back often and tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I'd like to start tonight with Father Ron Walters in our prayer.
Just a moment.
O God, as we express our creativity by creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father Ron. Pat, if you could spotlight me, I'd appreciate it.
Yes.
Now I'd like to go and talk a minute about a new show that we started on Thursday evenings. It runs every 2 weeks at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And the next one is July the 14th, tomorrow night. And our featured guest, Alan, if you could show the slide, please. Our featured guest is Lou Sassy. And Lou is just one fantastic modeler. I'm sure that you've probably seen some of his articles that have run in Model Railroader. He's a great photographer, and he does video work as well. So I know that you're going to enjoy meeting him and being able to chat with him. To do that, you're going to have to be on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, and it starts at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. If you'll go to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, and subscribe and ring the bell, then you will be notified for each one of the upcoming modeling lifestyle shows that we do, and not miss any of the great modelers that we're interviewing and talking with. Tomorrow night, it'll be Lou Sassy at 7 p.m. Eastern time. If you're interested in the show and interested in Pat, if you could spotlight me, I sure would appreciate it. If you're interested in working with us and helping us, please let me know. My email address is jimkello at newtracksmodeling.com. And we need all kinds of different help, both for running our shows and for also working on our website. So any help that you could give us would certainly be appreciated. We have what we call build-alongs. There are 3 of them that are starting this evening, and I hope you enjoy all 3 of them because all of them are very different, and I think that you'll get an awful lot out of each one of them. After those, the ones that we have coming up, the next 2, we have Seaport Model Works is going to build one of their 53-foot coastal steam passenger ferries. This is a waterline model, and Bruce Nicholson, who is the owner of the company, is going to be the builder. This is the first boat that we have built on the show, and I hope that you'll find it interesting and enjoyable and something a little bit different. Bruce is giving a significant discount for the kits, and I hope he sells a lot of them. And also then, and that starts on August the 17th. On August the 24th, the owner of Apogee Locomotive Works is going to build one of their new models. And this is the first locomotive kit that we have built on the show. And it's going to be one of their 28-ton box cabs. So I think that'll be something different. Aaron, who owns the company, is also giving a significant discount on the kit. So I hope that you'll take a hard look at that and decide to build that along with us. All of our build along information is on our website in much more detail than I'm going into this evening. But you can go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and get all of the additional information, the discounts that are available, and so forth. Well, now I'd like to turn and start tonight's show. But before I do that, I need to talk about the My Build that's coming up on July the 20th. And Alan, if we could, I'm sorry, Pat, if we could run Dan Daugherty's video for that, please.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
Thank you, Pat. Now I'd like to turn to Chris Course, who moderates and does a great job with the My Builds for us. The next one's coming up next week on the 20th of July, and I hope that you'll show us and share what your modeling is like. Chris, you want to talk about it a little bit, please?
Sure. Thanks, Jim. All right. The next My Build is July 20th. And as Jim said, to participate, you email your photos to me at railrunner130@hotmail.com, and we'll get those on the slideshow. And if you have not contributed before, please include a photo of yourself that we can include for your title card. It doesn't have to be the greatest work of all time. You know, we don't need any Mona Lisas or anything John Allen would have done, but whatever you're working on, whatever you have a question on, whether you find something weird, I know from time to time we all kind of stumble upon something and go that maybe at a train show and buy it, not really knowing what it is, but and you're really not having a whole lot of luck with it. Send us pictures and we'll see if we can help you out trying to figure out what it is. Those sorts of things. So I've gotten one response so far for the My Build for this month. So if you're waiting for a lull, now's your time. So anyway, please drop me an email, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and include those photos. And like I said, if you haven't participated before, a photo of yourself, and we'll include that. So back to you, Jim.
Chris, I really do appreciate all the work that you do on this. And I do hope that you'll get a lot of people responding to you, because this is a part of mentoring, sharing what we're doing and what we're building with each other, and trying to help each other understand what's involved in modeling. So thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate it. Now I'd like to turn to Tom Farrell. Tom was on the show not long ago and talked to us about some of the models that he has built. And I had a modeler send me an email and say, could you have Tom back and explain how he built that hobo campfire? He said, I really thought that was a great modeling scene, and I'd like to be able to learn how to do that. So Tom has agreed to come back this evening and tell us how he built his hobo campfire. So Tom, thank you so much. Welcome. Pat, is Tom not with us, or is he muted, or what?
Hold on one second, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
You're muted again.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Tom. Don't panic.
It's okay, got it.
Okay.
All right. I was going to try and hook up my phone here to this. Let me go. Let me go over to my workbench. Jim, can you give me just a minute to link my phone up?
Why don't I do this? Let me do something else and I'll come back to you in a few minutes, okay?
All right, I'll get my phone and then I'll
That's
go over
fine.
to my workbench. Fair enough?
So while Tom is doing that, let's turn to our door prize for the next show on the 20th and go to Alan Rogers, whose company is providing the door prize. So Alan, thank you so much for doing this, and tell us a little bit about what the door prize is all about.
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, I've mentioned the past couple of times that this is an SP prototype hand car shed, but I can tell you that
The door prize. So Alan, thank you so much for doing this.
I can tell you that you don't have to use it on the SP. You can use it if you need a board and batten siding shed. It's about 8 feet wide by about 12 feet long, and it's got a plank floor. It'll really work for any kind of a railroad, any prototype railroad that used a hand car shed similar to that, and you can add windows to it if you need to. So the winner will receive either O scale, S scale, or HO scale, whichever one you would like, and I'll be shipping it to you, and I'll be paying the postage. So looking forward to the winner and hearing your appraisal of it. Thank you so much.
Well, listen, I do really appreciate you doing this for us, Alan, and you have to be present to win this, but we will be announcing the winner and selecting the winner randomly on the show next Wednesday night, the 20th of July, and Alan will be here to make the presentation. So I hope you'll attend and be able to join us for entering the prize drawing. And Alan, thanks so much again for doing this. Now I'd like to turn to Bob Farquhar for our quick tip of the evening. Mr. Farquhar.
All right. And this is a tip for people that are starting to do roadbed working like that. The idea is to cut. There's a piece here I'm going to talk about. Cut the corners ahead of time on 4x8 sheets of plywood, for example. And what I've done here, I knew it was not going to be HO scale. I knew I was not going to do 28 radiuses or 38 radius. I did 32 and 34 and 36. So I cut a bunch of these curves in there. Then when it came time to lay down the roadbed, and just staple them together or glue them together and continue on. And, there's another example of it here. Of course, this is a wider radius than this one up here. And that's a tip.
Hey, Jim, I act together when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a great tip, Bob. Thank you so very much. Now, I must announce that Bob has been doing these for some time now to help Paul out, because Paul has got other things on his plate. And because of that, and because Bob has run out of quick tips for the time being, we're not going to be having these for a while until Paul can rejoin us, and that'll probably be in a couple of months. But then we'll restart these. So if someone else has a quick tip, if you'll send me an email, we'll get you on the show and have you share it with us. Because I found that these quick tips that Paul is the one who started it and came up with the idea are really popular. People like them. I get a lot of comments about them. So if you have something that you'd like to share with us, if you'll just let me know, then I'll schedule you on the show, and you can do them until Paul can rejoin us, like I say, in a few months. So with that said, Tom Farrell, let me come back to you so that you can help us understand how you built this hobo campfire.
Yeah, I apologize for the delay. I was not not quite ready with the phone. Can everybody see clear enough?
Yeah,
This was the model. One disaster after another. Here we go. This is the this was the hobo. We'll call it a diorama, which will eventually go on my rustic buff, an old Gothic railroad. There's the campfire that Jim was referring to, and this is the little, I call this Camp McCoy after my college roommate, just to bust his stones one more time. So the question came up is, how'd you do that campfire? And it really takes less than a couple, 3 to 5 minutes, and I can build that thing, and I'll show you. I right before the show, just to show proof of concept, I did it again just to refresh myself. Everybody see that?
yes,
That was this evening's work. So here's how I just take a piece of scrap wood, right? And I simply cut little pieces up. I'll do, okay to do this live, Jim? It'll only take 5
sure,
minutes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Everybody see what I'm doing? I'm just cutting little pieces of wood, right, from a scrap. And they're about 1/4 of an inch long. And I'm going to split a few of them. We're just creating the wood, really.
We've lost your view of what you're doing there. Now we're back.
Okay, so basically I'm just cutting up little scraps of wood to make the campfire, okay?
Right.
Then I take some super glue and I make a little ball of super glue, okay? About 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And I just sprinkle the wood onto the super glue, okay? And I'll put a little glob onto that. I usually use thin super glue for this stage right here, but I'm in the process of moving and I couldn't find my thin glue. So I'm going to put an accelerator on here. Stop me if you don't. Everybody knows what super glue accelerator is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's basically the basis of our campfire. And I'm going to take this black acrylic paint. Everybody see that? And now we're going to take a little paint. We're just going to paint the center of this fire black. Okay. So pretty simple, right, so far? And now the secret to the fire, which I'm sure everybody realizes is nothing more than a cotton ball, which, you know, regular old cotton ball. And I just strand it out. Everybody see what I'm doing? And I'm going to take some more of my super glue. I'm going to put another blob there, right in the middle. Super glue is a key ingredient to everything I do. And now we've got the basis for our, quote, fire. Yeah. We're just putting a little super glue around the base, okay? And a little more accelerator. And now we're going to color the fire. And normally I use acrylic paints. They're inexpensive and I couldn't find an acrylic orange, so I had to go to old school Floquil. But now we're just going to basically create the fire. So we're going to start with red. Let me shake my bottle here. So we've got little red. And you're just going to highlight the base of the fire with red and a little up in the smoke, right? We're going to tone this down at the very end. But you don't have to, it's pretty sloppy, really. And then we're going to switch to a fluorescent yellow. So we just want to call attention to the fire. So is this all coming clear? I need some feedback if everybody can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, looks fine.
Doing just great.
Okay, well, we're a little high here on the fire. So there we go. And we're going to tone this down with an alcohol wash when we're all done. Okay, now we're going to add orange. Might look sloppy now, but in a minute here, we'll clean it up. This is the flocal. I can smell the poison coming out of the thing. Okay. So this is just orange. Okay. And now we're going to start toning this down a little bit because our colors are a little strong. So we're going to go back to our black and highlight some of that wood in black again. And then the final touch is a alcohol wash of my brush a little bit. And we just highlight the quote smoke with alcohol wash. And the final thing we do is we go back to our cotton ball because we want to have the illusion of more clear white smoke. And voila, you've got a blazing campfire in 5 minutes.
That's impressive. That is impressive.
So that's how quickly it goes. And, they make a nice addition to if you ever do a hobo camp. You can throw more. If you notice, I did this one, the one I just did really fast, but I threw a couple extra logs on the fire here, basically.
Yeah.
But you get the general idea that I always maintain that all these things are really simple. They're just a question of knowing how to do them,
Yeah.
And that little, it's a pretty convincing fire for less than 5 minutes of work. Yeah.
No question about it. Tom, I really appreciate you taking the time to show us this tonight because I'm sure the modeler that had the question is impressed and probably now understands how he might be able to build one himself.
Yeah. And thank you. And
now this same modeler had a second question I got to ask you while you're here.
Okay.
How in the world do you package these dioramas for transport without having them totally destroyed once you get there?
Like the last show?
Yeah.
Basically, I put each one in a box. Well, first I put them in a plastic bag so that any of the packing materials, like styrofoam or something, won't adhere to the model. So I put a clear plastic bag around the model. And then I, just crumple up typically newspaper on the bottom of the box, cardboard box, and then set the model in, and then maybe put peanuts all around it, and you're in business. You just, the idea is to keep it from getting crushed so it's immobilized, so it won't move around, and, I've moved, this particular model was, oh shit, I just broke it. This, it's more dangerous than the workbench. This one I took to the Al Judy's show, and nothing got damaged right now. But it's just really, they're all my models, all my dioramas are on plywood basis. That helps too. And I build on plywood basis and then put them on the railroad. And then if I happen to move, like I did last July, when I tore down my rustic buff and old Gothic railroad, I had all the models up in less than an hour. And there must have been, there's lots of them. They're all over my workbench. And, I had the layout taken apart in an hour, all the buildings off in an hour. And so it's for Al Judy's show roughly a month ago now. I just selected a few, put crushed newspaper in the bottom of a cardboard box, put the model in a bag, put styrofoam out around the bag, and off we went. Nothing got damaged really. So.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that.
All right.
I really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. I also might add, you heard me talk about modeling lifestyle with Lou Sassy tomorrow night. Well, August the 10th, I hope you'll come back on Thursday night and see Tom Farrell, because he is the featured guest for August the 10th on Modeling Lifestyle. And you'll be able to see a lot more of his models and hear him talk a lot more about his modeling and his philosophy about modeling. So, Tom, thank you so much for being here this evening. I really do appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you later.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Well, now I'd like to go to Gary Schagol, MMR, who's going to do his bits and pieces for us. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Share screen here.
Stop sharing. There we go. Just hang on. You have to stop sharing. Thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
Pat, all I'm seeing is your NT logo thing here.
Yeah, I know it'll come back.
It's
It'll come
on.
back.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, but for my picture,
I'm seeing the same thing.
Instead of spotlighting me, all I'm getting is your NT.
And
Go
you
ahead.
see my screen, Pat?
Yes, I can. You're okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay, welcome to Bits and Pieces. Today, we're going to, last week, we talked about the home computer, taking it apart and salvaging the different pieces from it. And what I did, I went into mine, and as you can see, these are some of the pieces I had picked out. Now, as we go, you'll see these items here, and you're going to see what I've done with them. So we have capacitors. These are very tiny. They can go all scales. You might have a little trouble with N scale, but these two here, which are quite small, what I did with those was they were painted green and they were put on hydro poles, and they're now transformers on the hydro poles. Next slide, these little items here. Not sure what they're called, but I salvaged those. They're small and a little larger. And what I did with those was they were painted brown, stacked up as sacks, a couple of decals put on, and you've got a load of sacks. Next items. Now here's a variety of items that I've taken out. These items here, what I use those for is, you can see here, these little stirrups that go on the side of box cars, flat cars. They sometimes get broken off and you need one. Well, here's a spare one here that you can glue on its place, in its place, and they look very original we have, there's the sacks, these items here. You can see as I progress, okay, they're put on a skid and pallet, and they're now milk cans. The next item is this is a small little pot control. It was painted metallic. This is painted motor green, and here's a motor sitting on a stand. Next item is a rectangular type shape. So we took it, added paint, couple of high voltage signs, control box with a line going down, and we have a small electrical control box for power. Now these items here are stacks that are smoke, actually spark arresters that would go on a diesel switching locomotive in place of the stacks that are already there. This here is the little stand on the bottom. It was just a round cylinder. It could be used for a hose coming down, whatever you wanted to use. It's a nice little round object. And this object here is a small little item that was removed, and it was painted metallic color, and it'll go in as a control panel. Now these items here were the straps that went onto the wiring bars that are inside the computer. The black straps were removed, and little lift pins put on here, lift pins here and here, chains added on, and these will be put on a wrecking derrick and used for removing derailed cars and engines from the track. And that's my tips and bits and pieces for tonight, Jim.
Well, Gary, thank you so very much. That's interesting stuff you've got. And I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people saw the one that you did last time. And so I think that I think this idea is going to go over very well. And because what you're doing is it doesn't cost anything. It's free. So I think it's wonderful stuff that you're going to be doing for us.
Well, thank you. If people are looking for the old computers and electronics parts, just go visit any repair electronics shop, and they'll give you this stuff because they throw it in the garbage.
Free is good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, now for our first card build along, our first build along for this evening. This is of a card model. This is not 100% free. Pat, if you could come to me, Pat, if you could spotlight me, I would appreciate it. Because I see Gary on the screen right now.
Yeah, he's going to disappear in a minute, Jim. Just hang on.
Oh, okay. Because now I've got your NT up.
He's got to get out. There you are.
Thank you. This is a card model. This is not a free model, but it might as well be because the cost is very, very minimal. You print it off. You can go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and download it in any scale you want. There's a card on our website that shows you how much you have to enlarge it from the HO model that's on the site to be in your scale, or to reduce it if you're in scale. So we've got tonight, we have the designer of the service station, Paul Egrid, and we've got two modelers that are going to build this card model using two ways that you can do it. In other words, two different techniques of building the same model in card. This is an awfully nice model that Paul's designed because it's got an interior as well as the outside of the model. So the two modelers that are going to build Paul's design are David Reed and Father Ron Walters. And I know that Paul wants to say a few words because he's a designer. He's the one that created this thing in the first place. So Paul, welcome. And thank you so much for doing this for us.
First off, thank you. And even though I am the designer, it takes people like Father Ron or Dave Rehrig to bring those designs to life. And those are the people who really deserve the thank yous. So other than that, I'm just going to turn the program back over to you. I'll be listening. If someone has a question for me, I'll gladly jump in.
Well, I don't have a question, just a comment. My understanding is if people want to change this a little bit, maybe put some different signage and that kind of thing, that you can help them figure out how to do that. Is that right?
I will gladly try and give anybody a hand who wants to contact me. Yes.
That's great. So David, let me turn to you. You're going to be one of the builders. David has built on the show before a card model of an engine house. And then donated it on the show to a lucky winner. So David, thanks for doing this again. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to how you're going to build this model.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on here, Paul. I'm just going to go my screen share right now. And this is a little PowerPoint slideshow I put together just to kind of get started with this, if you will. So here we're going to share this screen. Hopefully it'll come up. Okay. Does that show up for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. This is what the station looks like. This is actually a pilot model that I built. It's not exactly the same as what will be in the build along, but it's pretty close. Okay, well, I'm not getting, oops. Now this isn't working the way I wanted it to. For some reason, it's not moving. Let me try this again.
Remember your up and down arrows and enlarging that.
No, all I get is a ding.
Okay, go to slideshow at the top.
Yeah.
Click on slideshow. See where it says slideshow next to your window? Format, tools, and slideshow. Right there.
Oh, it's covered over.
No, tools, and then slideshow is right next to it. Oops.
Yeah, I know, but I can't get to it. I've got to zoom. Let me back out of here and
Yeah,
let's
try
it over again.
You'll get it.
Let me get here. And I'll start my slideshow here. Of course, now I can't get out of it.
Yeah, share screen.
Yeah, but I don't have it.
You must have full screen.
Let me do this. Father Ron can't be with us tonight, but he sent a video. Pat, can you play his video? And Dave, this will give David a chance to get his set up.
David, you've got it yet?
No, I gotta figure out how to do this. I did it the other night.
Okay, just hang in there. I'll let you play with it.
Yeah.
I'll get Father Ron's going and then you can go back to you. Oops, somebody cut me off.
There we go. Okay, now it's working. I don't know what was wrong with it before, but
Go for it.
go for it. Okay. So anyway, this is a station design. This is just an introduction. First thing is you need to get some tools around, and I consider the printer to be a tool. I have an inkjet Epson It's an ET 3760. I bought, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I like it because it's one of those tank printers, because you go through quite a bit of ink when you're doing this project, or any printing project for that matter. And then you need an assortment of hand tools, which I'm going to describe in some following slides. And we need some cardstock and some paper. The cardstock that I use typically is Nina brand. I use a 65, 110, and 90-pound card, depending on the scale I'm building. This particular model we're building in HO scale, and I'll be using the 110-pound card. The bottom photo, I just took some of my specialty paper. I have some high definition presentation paper from Epson. Makes a brighter print. And actually, I'm going to use that later on in the presentation. Not tonight and probably not next week, but I'll show you how it is. And then I have some self-adhesive label paper. And that's kind of important according to the one thing we're going to do. The first thing you want to do is print the designs on the 110-pound card using the best resolution on your printer. After they're printed up and the ink is dry, which with my Epson, it says usually let it sit about a day. I've never really had a problem with it, but the ink does tend to set into the paper, if you will, and it has a drying time. So after it's dry, hit it with a clear spray, like a Krylon maybe, or anything that you buy at a hardware store or any place like that. I usually try to get the cheapest I can find. It's just something to help give a little protection to the finish. It doesn't take much. And some cutting tools. A large snap-off knife, 18mm here, is good for cutting large sheets of heavy card. You want an X-Acto or a scalpel for fine cuts. The one I use the most of all is the 9mm Olfa snap-off knife. And I use their ABB blade, which is extra sharp. I use a pair of regular Fiskar scissors I bought at Walmart, and a self-healing cutting mat. And I have some scribing and burnishing tools. I use actually this is a veneer roller, but basically the same thing as a seam roller for wallpapering. I use it all the time. And I have a burnisher that was from Excel. It's got a little, like a spoon shape tip on it. And then there's a Brookstone burnisher, which I've had for years and I hardly ever use. And then from Blick Artist Materials, I got this ball end embossing tool. You can't see it, but on the very tip ends is a small ball. I got the smallest one that they make. The tool I use for scribing most of the time is my Starrett sheet metal scriber. You got to be careful with it because it's a sharp point and it will go right through the paper if you're not careful. Measuring tools, I use optional dial calipers. I have a little X-Acto triangle that I use for making small cuts, like you're cutting out windows and doors and stuff like that. Comes in handy. I used a stick-on tab for like an index tab and a file folder. Stuck that onto the surface of it so I can pick it up and move it around, because otherwise you can't grab a hold of the darn thing. I have a 12-inch steel ruler with a cork backing for non-slip and a regular scale rule. And for handling, forceps I don't use very often. Sometimes they come in handy. Self-closing tweezers are handy, and these are a little bit larger ones. And I use a fine point tweezer for manipulating small pieces, and a larger serrated jaw tweezer for the bigger pieces. and get yourself some glue. I use Aleene's or Eileen's, however you pronounce it, tacky glue. That's for almost all my assembly work. You can use a wood glue if you want, or like this Yoo-hoo all-purpose glue. It's pretty much comes down to preference, your own personal preference. I use all of them kind of interchangeably, but there are some purposes that some of them work better than others. And I also use Elmer's stick glue. That's the kid glue that you buy in a Walmart. And not shown in this photo is canopy glue. And that might take a little bit of explanation. Canopy glue is used primarily in building model airplanes. They use it to glue the clear canopy onto the fuselage of a plane. And you can get that at any store where they sell model airplane materials, you know. And of course, liquid PSA, I got that. The only place I've ever seen where they have that is Micromark. It's pressure sensitive adhesive is what PSA stands for. But it's in liquid form. So you can brush it onto the back of paper or something, let it dry. And then you've got pressure sensitive adhesive on that. And CA, of course, is super glue, which I don't like to use because I have my fingers in it. I use markers to color the edge of the cut paper. These I got from Blick Artist Supply, and they're a lot of different places you can get them. You go to most any place, even Walmart would have them. I find the most useful are different shades of gray and like an umber, like a raw umber. The umber is up here at the top. The other thing that would be handy is if you can find a color that would be matched to your building color, the outside of your building that you're making. That might be a little tough because you never know exactly what these colors are going to be looking like until you try them. They don't look the same as what's on the cap, I can guarantee that. Okay, and then some assembly aids that I use. A magnifier can be helpful, especially as you get older like me and your eyesight's not so good anymore. I have some heavy weights that I brought along with me from when I used to teach a high school industrial arts shop, and that was a long time ago. But I found them very handy. These are cut off pieces of brass, aluminum here, scrap. And then I also use assorted clamps, rubber bands, elastic bands. They're not shown here. Now, if you're going to build this the way I did it, with the what I call a sticky label window method, you need to get yourself some self-adhesive label stock. I bought this stuff online from a company called officesupply.com. I don't have any stores around me where I can buy this stuff other than a Walmart, which even there is like 20 miles away, you know, back and forth. So I do a lot of my shopping online. This came through Amazon, $9.72 for 100 sheets. And it's 8.5 by 11. That's pretty cheap. I don't know if you go to Walmart, you'll find Avery labels. They'll be at least twice that much. In fact, the only thing I found was like a 10-sheet pack for about $10, something like that. So it's like 10 times cheaper. But you'll need that if you're going to use my method for making windows. Then the last thing you're going to need is some heavy cardboard or chipboard for your wall reinforcement. And by heavy, I'm talking 20 thousandths to 40 thousandths thick. You can use a cereal box cardboard. And that'll work fine if you sand off the clay coating that's on the printed side. And then you want some clear acetate to make window glass. And as an option, you can put the whole thing on a piece of plywood or MDF for base. And that's about it for my introduction. Next week, I'll get started on part 1 with the build. So any of you who want to build along, go back and get this material, have it ready for your first building session next week. Okay, any questions?
David, thank you so very much. Let's turn now, Pat, if you could run the video from Father Ron. Father Ron's building in a different way than David is.
Hello from Rome. Yes, Rome. I am here attending a meeting in my role as a priest. When this airs on July 13th, I will be somewhere in the air between Rome and the US. Paul Egri has provided some quality prints of a service station. David Rarig will be showing how to build a beautiful card model that few will be able to tell was printed on your computer's printer. I will be doing something a little different. I will also be using cardstock, paper, and cardboard to build the same service station, but from scratch. For beginning modelers, often the idea of scratch building can be a scary thing. Beginning modelers often do not have the supplies and tools that more advanced modelers use. I want to show that someone can build a beautiful model using ordinary things you may already have around the house. For instance, index cards, a cereal box, some blank paper, a box cutter, a ruler, a pencil, and so on. The build will require some planning and a little experimentation. You may also make some mistakes, but what you end up throwing away will probably not cost you very much, perhaps less than a penny. The skills you learn, you can apply to more advanced model building later in cardstock, in wood, cardstock, or perhaps even styrene. After building the service station with David, you may want to try a different kind of scratch build of the same service station. Good luck.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the 2 methods that you're going to see. And how we're going to do these is David will do it 1 week and Father Ron will do it the next week. And then David will come back and do his again. And then next week after that, Father Ron will follow and do his second one. So we'll go from one to the other until we have gotten both of them to complete their kit. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn something from both of them. I'm sure you will, because you've seen, as I said, David build before, and you've seen some of Father Ron's previous models and how he builds. So I think this is really going to be educational and enjoyable, and I encourage you to download the service station in your scale, and then see how you want to build it and the materials that you want to use in your modeling of this service station. So David, Father Ron, Paul, thank all 3 of you so very much for doing this. I really do appreciate it, and I think this is going to be just a fabulous demonstration of what's involved in card modeling and how it can help all of us in our modeling. Thanks again so very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Now I want to turn to Earl Hackett. Well, this is another new one that we're starting tonight. Earl's going to be doing these one every other week. So Earl will do one tonight for 30 minutes. Then you'll have time to catch up with Earl. And then he'll come back in 2 weeks and he'll do another one of these. And what he's going to do is show you how to do this bridge that he's going to be building eventually. And design it on CAD, have it 3D printed, and then put the parts together, get them painted, and build the bridge. So with that said, Earl, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and I will turn it over to you to start this.
Okay. Can you hear me there, Jim?
I can hear you. I can't see anything.
Okay, hang on a sec. We're working on it.
All right.
There we go. You see the beginning of the slideshow?
Yes, sir, I do.
Oh, great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We're going to start construction of a through girder bridge this week. And in this, we're going to break it into parts. The simplest things we're going to start with, the fourth lesson, we put in the cross braces and the stuff. It gets a little complicated, but by then you should be very competent in handling this CAD system. So today we're going to start with the main girder and the vertical stiffener angles. If you missed the June 8th introduction, go watch it and practice with the tools before you try to duplicate what we're doing tonight. You don't want to try to figure out how to do something while you're trying to figure out what to do. Now this is a slide that you ought to make a screen print of. That email there is one that I set up so that if you have any problems, you can email me and I can help you out with it. When you're putting these, you're going to be working on a cloud server, and I can go in and take a look at your work if you have a problem and see what you did and where you may have gone wrong. But you have to have a unique name so I can find it. So that's just a suggestion there. Okay. You want to build the model in your scale. A lot of, in the past, you would take a full scale model drawing and reduce it to your scale. In 3D printing, that does not work because we're talking, when you shrink it down, some of the components may shrink to a size that you cannot print. They'd be too thin or small or weak. So you want to design the model in whatever scale you're working with. This model just fits, I mean, within 1/4 of an inch of the edges of my Saturn build plate. If you're building in O scale, you may want to, you would have to break it down into multiple parts. And my own personal preference would be to use the what are called the floor bridges, floor braces, floor plates. I use them as the mating surfaces between the parts. You'll see them later on, but this would require mating pins and stuff, and we're not going to get into that kind of stuff on this one. This is a very basic instructional video, although the bridge you're going to wind up with is pretty darn good. Okay, so I'm going to build this in HO scale. There, 1 foot equals 3.5 millimeters, and 1 inch is about 0.3 millimeters. The bridge length is 50 feet or 175 millimeters. This is the side view of it. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 plates. And we're going to build this side of it to start with. One of the things you have to recognize is we have stiffener angles, and we also have a main structural angle up here. It's a 6 by 6 by 3/4 inch, a 3/8 inch angle in the prototype. The prototype would either bend these stiffener plates to fit, or they put in a filler plate and then rivet through the whole business. I'm going to be using the filler plates because designing it with the bent angle is way more than what a beginner wants to start with. The main girder plate is 0.4 millimeters thick. You want it thick enough so that it has a structural integrity to hold up, because you're going to be running trains over this thing. Now, these are another couple plates of slides you want to take pictures of. These have the dimensions we're going to be working with. And we're going to build these vertical stiffeners in the main plate tonight. Next week, we'll work on the these details here, and we're going to flip everything around to the other side and build the other side and put on the cover plates too. There's cover plates to go on top of this thing. So get yourself a screen print of this so that you have the dimensions to reference. Okay, and this is the stiffener, the vertical stiffeners. These are the dimensions on that. You want a screen print of this. It could be a little confusing getting all these guys lined up, but you'll see what I do when we get into it. Okay, I'm going to escape from here. And I'm going to go to there. And we're going to go to Onshape. And I have to sign in. And we're going to, this is the bridge we're going to be building. I've built this before. I've built it a couple times now, just to learn this system. So we're going to create a document, which is their, okay. And we're going to call this the Nutrax bridge, NTBRIDGE. Okay. And we're going to create a public document because this is their free version. Now, as you can see, we have all these planes here. And I am going to go over to my other slide here. 1 minute. There, I want to have this up. I have 2 screens here, and on the other screen, I have all the dimensions shown that I'm going to be working with. So the first thing we're going to do is create a sketch. And it's going to say sketch plane. I'm going to do it on the right. Right there. I want to right plane. And we're going to create and this is important. This is a very important little bit we're going to do here. We're going to put a center point rectangle. Okay, and we're going to dimension it out. And I said that was 175. And this is 21. So this is the main girder. Now, we want to get this guy lined up on the center point. So we're going to go to, where is it up here? Dimension. Where'd it go? Boy. Centric parallel. Where did it go? A coincidence. That's what I want. Yeah. The center of this should be with the center of the, there we go. Now go to extrude. We're going to extrude this thing 40 thousandths to get the thickness of our plate. Come over here, extrude. It picks it up for us automatically. And it's important to pick out symmetric. And we're going to depth 0.4. And check. Now we have, here's our main girder plate, 4 thousandths, 4/10 of a millimeter thick. So now I want to go to the front. And we're going to take another rectangle. And this rectangle is going to be any old rectangle. Let's see, sketch, front plane. Take a rectangle here. A corner rectangle is fine. Okay, and we're going to go up here. We're going to dimension this. And this one is 3.6. Now, come on. Well, what did I do now? I did something wrong. All right. See what we're going to do. Front plane. This is not my normal. Those of you who have listened to me before, this is not my, there we go. Now it's right. And that's going to be 3.3.6. And I'm going to zoom in on this. .25. Okay. Now we're going to take extrude this. Extrude. Faces sketch true. Going to extrude for 175. And we can check this. Okay, so now take a look here. We have this great big long plate there. And what we're going to do now is going to translate it. Translate by line. Part 2. Line or point. We're going to go from the midpoint of the top right here to the midpoint of this. Going to zoom in to pick it. There we are. And we like that, so we check it. Now, whoops. Up there, okay, now I'm going to take part 2 and we're going to translate it again. Transform rather. This time we're going to copy the part and we're going to translate by line or points. And we're going to copy from this midpoint to this midpoint. Well, it's not happy with me. Cancel. As you see, this is not my normal unit. Take this one. We're going to transform. Transform from liner points. Copy. Liner points from there. To there. Ah, did it that time. Okay. Check. Now we've got our main girder is pretty well defined here. And we're going to take all 3 of these and we're going to make them into one part with Boolean union, union, yes, check. So now we have a single piece. Now we're going to make the stiffeners, the vertical stiffeners. Go over here to my, I've got to get the dimensions up on my other screen. Let's go to the top. So we're going to be working from this direction. Now this is an angle. It's a 3 by 4 inch angle. And you can go through what I showed you before where you draw all the lines and then you do all this stuff over here with the constraints. But it's a whole lot easier just to do a couple of rectangles. So we're going to take this, going to work on the top plane. And we're going to use a rectangle. Now let's see if I can get this straight here. You want the, looking over here, it's 7 by 0.5. Mention this. .75. I got to zoom way in now. .5. Okay. This is one leg of the rectangle. Now, what this is a combination of the backside of the stiffener plus that filler plate that I mentioned earlier. So it's thicker than what a normal angle would look like. So we now want to get the angle that the other leg of the thing, which would be another rectangle. And this would be, let's move this down so I can see it. 0.25. Now 0.25, this is really, it's the smallest I can do on my printer reliably. And it looks pretty good, but of course it is much thicker than the prototype would be. The prototype would be so tiny, you just fall apart. So, but this is as thin as my printer will let me go and have it hold together. And this one here would be 1.4. Now, we're going to take each of these, and this is what things that are a little different. We're going to extrude these both, but we're going to extrude them half the distance that we need, and you'll see why in a few minutes. So we're going to take extrude this depth. Let's see what it was, 10.25. And check. What happened? Extrude. That's better. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. My other one disappeared. Well, draw another one. This was the okay. Sketch. Top plane, rectangle. Dimension. Okay, check. Extrude. Face of sketch 4, 10.25. Okay, check. Now, this is where we make the angle. Part 3. Transform line of points there to here. Check. This Boolean join. Where is it? Where to go? Where to go? There he is. Okay. Check. Now we have, here is our angle. Now it's half the length of what we want. So let's go to the right-hand side. Let's go to the right. Oh. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'll do it this way. Do it on the left-hand side. That's fair enough. Don't want to confuse it. Okay, that's now we're going to do another sketch. Here's where we're going to make our rivets. We're going to put a row of rivets down here. Sketch plane here. We're going to do a center point arc. Now, you want to make sure you get this right. Now, notice that little line to the lower, just to the lower right of my cursor. That little dot is in the center. That means you're at the center of that line. So we're going to pick the center. That's what needs to be on the center. And we're going to say from here to here. Now notice that shows me that I'm on the edge. So I know that this is a 180-degree circle. Now we can sit there and we could dimension this circle or the arc rather. And say 0.15 would probably be about right. We're going to a 0.3 or 1 inch diameter head. Okay. Now we need a line to fill it. We're going to do a line from here to here. And you don't have to dimension this because it already knows where all these points are. I'm going to say check. Then we're going to say revolve. Now, this is where you get screwed up. Faces the region. Okay. I wanted to revolve this. Revolve axis. That. Now, look what it did. It turned this to add. You do not want that. Put this back to new. Okay. And it rotated it 180 degrees. Solid, check. Okay. This is now part 3. And we're going to copy that. Whoops. What did I do? Come here, you. This drives me crazy with this particular system. Part 3, we're going to transform that. And notice up here, this is the Z axis we're working with now. Because we want to, they're going down this surface here. So we want to transform. We're going to do it by line. We're going to do it by XYZ. And in this case, the Z axis is minus. So it's this one here, we want about minus 0.37. And we want to copy the part. And I like that. Now we're going to take part 3 again. And we're going to transform. Where'd it go? There we are, transform. And by XYZ. And this one, we're going to put a rivet down at 1.12. And that looks good. Whoops. You need to copy the part. Transform. Part 3. XYZ. Copy part. Got to remember that. Minus 1.12. There. Got it right that time. Check. And finally, one more copy, one more transform. Transform. XYZ. This time we don't have to copy the part because we're going down to 2.25 minus 2.25. Okay. Check. So this is still part 3 down here. And part 3, we're going to do a linear pattern. Linear pattern. Part 3, direction. We're going to pick a line here. Distance, 1 millimeter apart. About 3 inches. No, not 21. 1, please. And we're going to have, how many we're going to have here? We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them. Enter. Boom. Hey, it worked. Check. All right. Now, we're going to take part 2, which is the base. We're going to take everything except that last rivet. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going to join them. So it's one piece. And we're going to wrap around here like so. Oh, come on, get up there. There we go. I'm going to take this, part 3. No, sorry, part 2, not part 3. And we're going to mirror that around this base here. Part 2, mirror plane, there. Check. That's fine. Take this whole business here, Boolean join. Come on, I hate that. So we now have a vertical stiffener. We'll take this guy here and we're going to, this is part 2, going to translate, transform, I could call it translate by line, liner points out of the way from this corner here to this corner here. That looks good. See if we're still okay. Looks fine. Okay. Now we're going to take part 2 and we're going to mirror it. Part 2, mirror plane. This surface of new. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, take part 3. We're going to move it. What direction am I moving here? Y. Okay, it's the Y dimension, Y axis. Part 3. Transform. X, Y, Z. Y, we're going to move it 2 millimeters. Minus 2 millimeters. Okay. So now we're going to take part 3 and we're going to linear array direction. There. Distance, 14. This is count. How many am I going to have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe. 7. Looks good. That's excellent. Check. Now we're going to take all of these and we're going to mirror those. Mirror plane. And this is why you wanted it. Wanted it centered on this point, because now I can mirror them around this plane and we're good. Check. And we're done for tonight. There you go. We have one side of this bridge all done. And we're ready to move it over to the other side. Next week, we're going to add those rivet plate details in here. We're going to put the cover plates on it, put the rivets on them, and put the whole business over on this side here. Now, you notice that the reason I made that half distance, you don't want to duplicate geometry any more than you absolutely have to. It speeds things up. So if you have any kind of symmetry, like when I took all these pieces here and just flipped them over there, it speeds things up. You don't want to have to go and say, okay, to copy this one, to copy here, to copy here, to copy here. Just take the whole business and mirror it. And so setting things up on planes and stuff so that you can mirror them in this system is a real handy way to speed things up. All righty. Going to get out of here. Let's see what happens here if I close this. Well, they save it automatically, so I don't have to worry about it. Save it out and escape. Stop share. That's what I got to do. Stop share. There we go. Okay. Anybody have any questions? I went through that pretty quick. That's the speed at which I normally work in CAD. That may, as I said, you're going to go back, look at this video. It'll be up on the YouTube channel tomorrow. Don't try and keep up with it. Try to understand what we're doing and the sequence we're doing it in, and proceed on your own at your own speed. And by the time we get done with this thing, you're going to be pretty darn good CAD operators, I guarantee you. Okay, any questions? I bet you they're questions, but they don't know what to ask. All righty.
I know that's the shape I'm in, at least. But I will say this. The next session of this will be on the 27th. So you're going to have 2 weeks now. You got 2 weeks to build this side and get it like it needs to be. And if you run into trouble, as long as you have identified your drawing in an identifiable way where Bob can help you, you have his email on one of the slides that he posted. So all you have to do is email him, tell him what your problem is. He can go in, look at what you've done, and tell you then what you need to do to fix it. I mean, it's as easy as that. So if you really are interested in trying to learn to do CAD, this is your opportunity, and it's not going to cost you anything except your time. So with that said, Earl, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and going through this. And I fully expect you'll get a lot of questions coming in from people who are trying to learn this.
Yeah, I'm glad to help out. I'm on the computer almost every day for a couple hours and check email all the time. So should be able to help anybody that's in trouble there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Earl. I really do appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. Well, now I'd like to turn to another build along. And this one's done by Darryl Jacobs. And it's of one of his kits. So Darryl, welcome. Thank you so much for being here and doing this.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for having us here and letting us share this build tonight. So what we've done is we've pre-recorded our videos so I can stay in the time slot because I tend to wander a lot, as you guys know. So we'll keep that under wraps. And if you have any questions or comments during the video or after, just leave them in the chat and I'll try to answer them as best I can, or you can drop me an email on anything. So with that, I guess, Pat, I'll let you take it away. Yep.
I'll wait until afterward.
Okay.
Hi there. Welcome to the first chapter of the new tracks modeling build along of Keegers Garage and Repair. This is a great little kit produced by Interaction Hobbies. We will be building the HO scale version of this kit, but the O scale version is very similar. We will do our best to point out the differences between these kits along the way. This kit has a lot of character built into the design. With some patience and attention to detail, we hope to assist you in turning this kit into one looker of a building for your layout. So, let's clear the workbench and get started. Now it is time to see all the stuff that is included in the kit. So, let's open it up and see what is inside. The first item is our full-color instructions. The instruction manual for Keegers is 23 pages long. It is chock full of detailed steps, tips and techniques to make things as simple as possible for the builder. Next is the parts identification sheet. It has part numbers that correspond to the instruction manual. Then there is the template sheet that provides full-size dimensions for cutting and placing bracing for the structure. Full-color graphics are provided for the awning, signage and interior walls. The wall sheets are laser-cut clapboard sheets milled from basswood. In the O-scale kit, the walls are doubled up for thickness and stiffness. Also, there are some basswood detail parts and some cabinet bits and pieces. The building foundation is laser cut from mat board. There is a doubler for the floor that makes assembly of the walls easy and precise. Next we have the laser cut windows, doors and details sheets. These are made from various thicknesses of resin impregnated board material. This material holds detail well and is easy to work with in sanding and gluing. There is laser-cut glazing for your windows and a piece of fine tulle fabric. This is used for the screen doors that are provided. Some black paper is provided for the tar paper roofing. Here we have a basic lighting kit to light the interior of the building. It includes an LED strip light and some 2-conductor wire. Lastly, we have the parts bag. It contains various sizes of dimensional strip stock and bracing. There is a chimney, stovepipe, and lampshades along with a piece of phosphor bronze wire for the awning and gooseneck lamps. And there is even a tiny 3D printed shop cat included to keep the mice out of the garage. Let's talk about tools and supplies. We are not going to go into detail on every tool you need to build a laser cut kit, as you have seen that a number of times during these types of build sessions. You can find our suggestions for tools and supplies in the beginning of the instruction manual. Instead, we will now highlight the key bits of kit that stand out to help you improve your model building game. We won't go on about the right blade or razor for you, but we will mention that it is important to have fresh blades of your favorite type on standby. Nail file cards with a 220 grit finish are all you need to clean up parts and remove the nubs left after removing parts from their carrier sheets. 2 sets of fine point tweezers will make it easier to assemble the smallest of parts and position them where they need to go. We say 2 sets as you will see the first set disappear in front of your eyes as you just had them in your hands 2 seconds ago. These Tamiya sprue cutters are indispensable in trimming rafters, trimming ill-forming tabs, and truing up roofing. You can find more on these in our tool tip video from a while back. Having a decent set of dry brushing brushes will assist in applying realistic weathering effects to the siding and trim. A very valuable tool that can really help age wood siding is an old stiff paint brush that has had much of the fibers set with old paint. The stiff nature of the bristles are just right for enhancing the wood grain without damaging it too much like a wire brush would. As far as glue goes, we use Scotch quick drying tacky glue. It dries very quickly and is forgiving in cleanup as long as you don't let it set up completely. You can however use any PVA glue that you would like on the basswood and resin board material of the kit. Also, these pinpoint glue applicators are absolutely necessary to put glue precisely where you want it. They are readily available on Amazon or at craft stores in the paper crafters area. For the building colors, you can use whatever acrylic paints that you would like, but the following Vallejo paints are what we use and recommend. These high-quality model paints have stronger pigments, with less fillers than the cheaper craft store acrylic paints, so they go down smoother and provide better coverage overall. Sorry that it is a bit of an eye chart, but you can come back to this part of the video and freeze the picture to get the paint colors. As well, we will post this in the comments section on our YouTube site. And of course, you can choose to paint your building and trim in whatever colors suit your fancy. Let's start the construction process by bracing the wall panels to prevent potential warping. For this process, we have provided a full-sized bracing template sheet. Using the supplied 1/8 inch square strip stock, cut the bracing to fit the walls as shown in the bracing template. Note that the bracing does not come all the way to the bottom edge on some of the wall panels. This is because of how the doubled-up foundation fits against the bottom of the wall. Make sure the bracing ends a little over 1/16 of an inch from the bottom of the wall panel, as shown on the bracing template. Cutting your bracing in this manner is quick and accurate. There is a bit of sanding to do on each end, but that goes quickly and will make for a nice tight fit. Place the bracing as accurately as you can, in accordance with the bracing template. It is important to consider the location of the bracing, so that it will not interfere with the assembly process later on. You will note that for some of the wall panels, we have left them in the carrier sheet while we apply the bracing. This will assist with minimizing warping during any staining and painting that you do. Apply the glue to one face of the bracing and press it to the wall, making sure to closely match it to the bracing template. Make sure you don't get any glue into the laser cut slots. Also be sure to clean up any excess glue squeeze out to keep your work clean and tight. Continue the process until you have all the bracing in place. For the bracing around the front windows, make sure the bracing does not obstruct any of the window openings. If needed, you can sand the bracing slightly to reduce its thickness before gluing it in place. Now we can turn our attention to prepping some parts for painting. The 3D printed corbels have support pins to be removed. You can do this with some sprue cutters or nippers to snip the pins from the back of the corbel. Sand the back face so it will fit flat against the wall panel. Glue the corbels to a cork or scrap piece of wood and set them aside to let the glue set. A good tip here is to cover your paint tray with tin foil. This will allow you to reuse the tray a number of times, without it always being gummed up with paint. For painting the clapboard walls like the ones in this kit, we like to paint them while they are still in the carrier sheet. This helps with minimizing warping while the paint dries. You could stain the walls prior to painting, but for a little newer look, we are going to apply light coats of our base color to the walls. 2 light coats should do it. The idea here is to just color the wood and not have a thick coat of paint that covers up the wood grain. Make sure to paint the inside of the wall panels, as you will see these through the front windows. For applying paint to the wood trim, an easy way to get an even coat is to wet a paper towel with the paint you are using. Then squeeze the paper towel around the wood strip and pull it through the paper towel. Repeat this process a couple of times to get an even finish on the strip wood. To paint the remaining detail parts, either brush coat the sheets, or use a sponge to sponge on the paint to the carrier sheet of parts. For painting window frames and mullions, we like to use these cosmetic sponge wedges to apply an even coat, with no brush strokes or fear of breaking the delicate window mullions. Again, a number of light coats is much better than trying to do it all in one heavy messy coat. Some of the parts will have both sides showing on the finished model, so be sure to paint the backside of the sheet as well, where required. Paint the corbels with a detail brush and make sure you do not cover up the nice detail with too much paint. Again, a couple of light coats is all you need here. Then, using a mixture of trim color and off-white, lightly dry brush the corbels to highlight the detail. Use some panel line wash to further highlight the fine details in the corbel. The panel line wash is a spirits-based wash, so it will not affect the acrylic paint like an alcohol-based stain would. Now we will give the clapboard a wash of a darker shade to form some shadows in the bottom of the clapboards. Spend a bit of time to get the right thin, but milky consistency, for the wash. Let this dry completely before proceeding to the next step. Using a mixture of our clapboard color and off-white, we can lightly dry brush the clapboard to bring out the detail even more. Make sure to brush against the grain of the clapboard to highlight the edges of the clapboards. Using the old paint brush we discussed earlier, or some steel wool, burnish the clapboard as shown here. This will remove any fuzz that the painting process produced. As well, it will slightly enhance the grain of the wood. Well, there you have it. This is a good place to stop and have a beer, take a break and reorganize the messed up workbench. In the next chapter, we will start the assembly of the foundation, wall sections, and then get the building assembly underway. We hope you are enjoying this build so far. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask in the chat or drop us an email. That's it for now from Interaction Hobbies. Everyone, keep on modeling and have a great day.
Hey, I hope that worked out okay. I was getting a lot of internet dropout at my end, so. But, back to you, Jim.
Does anybody have any questions for Darryl?
A lot of great ideas. I say there's a lot of great ideas in there.
Great.
Well, Darryl, thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing you next time for a continuation of this.
For sure.
Thank you. Now I'd like to turn to something that I think is going to be really different for our show. I've never been involved in this kind of activity before, but I think it may well be for some of us a future for our model railroading. Heath Heath Hurwitz has developed a remote operating switching layout. And he's here tonight to tell us a little bit about it and how it operates and how we as model railroaders can operate on it. So Heath, thank you so very much for being here tonight.
Hi, Jim. Thanks so much. My name is Heath Hurwitz, as you said. Today, we're going to talk about my remotely operated switching puzzle and why I decided to do something a little bit different with my modeling. I'm currently a project manager in the audiovisual and construction fields working for an LED display manufacturer. But back in March of 2020, I lost my job in the live events industry and decided that I needed to learn a new skill. I thought that online gatherings would increase, so I ended up creating a YouTube channel based around model railroading, which I had just picked up again after a long hiatus starting in December of 2019. It reminded me of how much I loved model railroading, and I really got back into it and have met a really amazing community. I set up a goal for myself to combine my skills in audio visuals to expand the online community around model railroading. For me, model railroading is all about troubleshooting, and it involves every category of STEAM: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. It allows me to feed my creativity as well as my passion for electricity and electronics. I can't go around sticking things in outlets anymore and get away with it, so model railroading allows me to scratch that itch. My experience with model railroading up until 2020 and joining the model railroad community was primarily rail fanning layouts. As a kid, I went to the Greenberg train shows and saw a lot of trains just running in loops. I thought that all layouts were built for continuous running and turnouts were only used to move a train from one loop to the other or for additional scenic details. As I got more and more into model railroading as an adult, I had my heart set on a layout that was built around continuous running. But I kept hearing about how exciting operations were, but I didn't really understand what it was and why I would want to do it, which then made me want to learn about it. I do not consider myself a prototypical modeler, not even close. I model what I like, regardless of era or region, or whether something goes together with something else. Prototypes, operations, modeling, the real railroad stuff is all new to me. If you want to hear from an expert in switching layouts, there are much better resources than me. Today is really just about my journey and my transition from continuous running to building a shelf layout and to possibly inspire others to make the switch from continuous running to operations. My model railroad collection consists of trains related to the circus in ZNHOS O, and G scale. So I wouldn't say I've picked a specific scale. I model a little bit of everything. My layout growing up was all HO scale, but I was looking into building something, currently building something in N scale that better fits my space. When in the planning stages, I thought I had to model in T-Track and do something modular, and that I would never have this quote unquote real layout. There wasn't any way I'd be able to have a permanent, continuous running layout, and making something modular was a good alternative. I've worked at home on and off for several years and had a corner office in our 1-bedroom apartment. Therefore, my home office also became my modeling railroading area. In this photo, you can see the first T-Track module that I was building. After about a year of working from home and building my model railroad empire, my partner and I decided that I needed a space of my own. So living in New York, space is quite a premium. I found a 77 square foot office to rent. I started designing different space configurations to try and figure out where I could have my office and also have a layout. One big obstacle was that the door swings into the space, and being a rental, I couldn't change this. In the bottom right of the photo, you can see a shelf that I set up that runs over the door that I'm using for a G scale and an O scale continuous running loop. The office studio is a 9-foot by 8-foot room. It currently makes up my work from home office, my streaming studio for a YouTube channel, and my model railroad collection and layout. Jim, I don't know if they noticed, they've been asking in the chat to take the spotlight off of you because you're the one that is in the corner up on YouTube. So, where was I? So I have a lot of stuff in a really small space. I have this automatic back and forth track, which if you ever get to see me, you can still see I've got an HO scale train that ping pongs back and forth. But I wanted something else, so I decided to build a shelf layout to discover why people enjoyed switching trains. When trying to decide what switching puzzle I wanted to build, I wanted something complicated, but not too complicated. And there I am. Now you can see me. I tend to err on the side of complicated, which you might get a sense of later in this presentation. Although I wasn't initially thinking about remote operations, I wanted something that I could learn about all the various electronics associated in the hobby. DCC was also very new to me, and I wanted to experience all of its possibilities. When I started researching options, Inglenook Sidings, of course, came up a lot. And I found this great website that had a good write-up on several self-switching puzzles. I decided I would build a puzzle and not a layout, which for me meant not a prototypical industrial yard. But Inglenook Sidings with 2 turnouts just didn't feel like it was complicated enough for me to be, excited about it. Another option I found online was Switchman's Nightmare by Lynn Westcott. This puzzle had a lot of promise, as I saw some really interesting examples where modelers had turned the puzzle into really like scenic masterpieces, so almost looking very prototypical. But with 10 turnouts, this was a little more complicated than I wanted to tackle, which brought me to the Time Saver by John Allen. And as stated by Goldilocks in the 3 Bears, this one is just right. The Time Saver with 5 turnouts was a good middle ground for what I was looking at doing. Also, when considering adding in all the technology, the smaller layout would be less expensive. This was one of the considerations for me in choosing the Time Saver over the Switchman's Nightmare. The straight track along the top of the design I am considering as my main line, where I could at a later time add an operational element where freight cars would be dropped off from another zone. This was also an idea that I saw online where 2 Time Savers could be connected together so that they could pass freight cars between each other. I did end up removing the curves that you see in the drawing, made them straight, which would make remote coupling easier. And I also have it set up with the idea of using movable bumpers and end stops to change the difficulty of the puzzle by shortening any of the tracks. For my variation, I did add a 6th turnout, which is the additional spur you see at the bottom. This is where I put my programming track, as well as just providing another option to spot cars. I currently have 5 delayed uncoupling magnets on my version. I might add a 6th on the bottom spur. There's a little bit of a problem when you try and push cars around that turnout onto that bottom spur that they end up recoupling. I'd already owned all of the track because I'd purchased it when I was considering other layout stuff. I used Atlas Code 80 snap track and turnouts. The shelf is a 48-inch by 10-inch shelf that I picked up at the local hardware store, and I covered the shelf with 1/2-inch cork, and I just used track nails to secure all the track. I actually wound up laying the track twice in order to provide more realistic operation, or not realistic, in order to provide more reliable operations. I swapped out the Atlas turnouts that had insulated frogs for Pico electro frogs. Atlas number 4 turnouts are 12.5 degrees, whereas the Pico medium turnouts are 10 degrees. So that small difference in 2.5 degrees basically meant I had to relay everything. This did solve an issue I was having with the 4-axle switcher and the isolated frogs. Energizing the frogs was much easier than adding a keep alive to my N-scale locomotives. Atlas Code 80 track is compatible with either Pico Code 80 or Code 55, so the track heights aligned really well. And this is a little bit of a comment for Jason the Train Freak. I did use Pico joiners because I liked their smaller profile over the Atlas track joiners. I used a Dremel with a router attachment to cut in the delayed uncoupling magnets. And at this point, I was starting to really focus on building this for remote operations. So I painted the magnets. I taped off all the other track and painted the magnets just to make them a little more visible. The showstopper and this move to increased online communities had a huge influence on my model railroading at this point, and really influenced my decisions when building this switching puzzle. I was able to connect with a lot of different people and borrow some of their ideas and methodologies when building my layout. But we all had different goals, and I think a lot of our different goals really impacted who used what technology on their, their remote operation setups. My biggest influence in my decision to make a puzzle for remote operations was Bernard Beck at Silicon Valley Lines, and seeing him being interviewed on the TSG Multimedia YouTube channel. He did a lot of the initial work in implementing remote operations over there. SVL, though, is very dedicated on their website. They say it's dedicated to operating our models in a realistic fashion, and their remote operations followed that mission. So everything they did was set up so that the operations could be as prototypical as possible, even with remote operators. They ended up using Discord voice chat, where the remote engineers can talk to a remote dispatcher to get permission to proceed to a specific spot on the railroad. The dispatcher would confirm that the route is clear and adjust any turnouts as needed, and release the train to proceed. They did have local yard masters as well as other local support for the remote crews, but they tried to move a lot of the engineering operations remotely. Silicon Valley Lines has a very limited internet connection, which is something that has hindered the expansion of their remote operations. But even so, they've done a lot within the limited resources that they have. Another layout that I took some inspiration from was Dave Abeley's Onondaga Cutoff. This layout also runs very prototypically on timetables. I'm also aware there are several other layouts that have remote operations set up, such as Speed Mueller, who was actually here on New Tracks not too long ago talking about MQ trains, Brad Anderson down in Australia, Andy Ambrose over in the UK. There are a lot of different people experimenting with remote operations, but there hasn't sort of come up with any single universal system or methodology that everyone is following. My goal is to create a puzzle or a layout that could be remotely operated and also easily accessible. While I was able to take guidance from the others that had ventured into the realm before me, there were still several challenges that I had to personally overcome. One of my goals with remote operations is that I wanted the remote operator to be the one that actually solved the puzzle without requiring any local input. I wanted to move as much of the process of running the railroad to being remote. A lot of the solution then, of course, came down to technology. I wasn't sure exactly what was going to give the remote operator the best experience. I've kind of, done some troubleshooting, found out some things, and I think I have a pretty good system going at this point. I started just by adding things that I knew that I would need. I am using slow motion switch machines as they can all be remotely controlled. I use Smails for turnout control. These are slow motion switch machines with the DCC decoders actually built inside of them. I also, even though the goal was to have this remotely operated, I did also add push buttons for local turnout control. One nice feature of the Smails is they actually have a terminal block where you can just wire up these buttons directly to the Smail, which made that part pretty simple. I added dwarf signals next to each turnout to indicate its current position. This is where I'm starting to get into more of the interaction between the physical layout and the remote operators. The signals are actually facing the cameras for easy visibility, and the colors also will match the colors that are in Panel Pro on my JMRI panel that the remote operator has access to. To control the state of the dwarf signals, I'm using the SP single pole, single throw switches that are built right into the Smails. You look at all this wiring underneath, a lot of that is just for the turnouts, but I did try and keep it as neat as possible for easy troubleshooting. Each section of track is also isolated so that I could add block detection in the future. On the top photo on the right side, you can actually see the DigiKeys DR4088 LNCS, which is already wired in for block detection. It's just one of the future things that I need to set up in JMRI. The heart of this DCC system is the DigiKeys DR5000 command station. I have a UR93 for Digitrax throttles, TCS throttles. Will connect via the Y throttle server that's running on my laptop. And I've got a protothrottle receiver there in the center, which is connected via ExpressNet. This switching puzzle, or this command station runs the switching puzzle as well as the layout expansion that I'm gonna mention a little bit later. I'm also using a DCC Concepts alpha meter to monitor the power, and I have DCC Specialties PSX1 digital circuit breakers with the buzzers installed for additional short protection. Some of this technology included is intended for me to just learn about DCC. Others of it is specifically set up to enhance the remote operations of the puzzle. One requirement for the remote switching of a yard or a puzzle is a low latency connection between the remote operator and the model railroad. Again, the goal is that remote operator was going to do everything. They were going to operate the switches. They were going to couple and uncouple cars. They were going to control the locomotive. They're going to be able to do everything remotely. So I had to solve the problem of how somebody can remotely see well enough to couple and uncouple N-scale boxcars. So I had to figure out how many cameras am I going to need to do this on my 48-inch by 10-inch shelf? Where should the cameras be placed? How can the remote operators see the magnets and like where the turnouts are as they're moving around the layout? The difference between this photo on the left and the photo on the right is very subtle in N scale, especially over a camera. But I had to come up with a reliable way for a remote operator to be able to see the difference. And not only just see it, but be able to control the locomotive with enough precision to achieve coupling and uncoupling without immense frustration. Roy Eltham, I'm talking to you. The backbone of the remote operations portion of the railroad is JMRI, Java Model Railroad Interface. I have this software running on a dedicated 2018 MacBook Pro through the use of the built-in JMRI web server. Operator is able to remotely access the locomotive's throttle and the turnout control. While low latency is important for the throttle control, it's also extremely important with what the operator sees. Basically, this required me to set up this camera, and using things like Skype or Zoom or Teams wasn't going to work because there's just too much lag when you have to send your camera signal up into the cloud and then have your operator view what is then being sent back. So the ultra low latency view that I have for this layout is provided through a peer-to-peer video connection, and it's a service that I use called Video Ninja. The camera that I'm using is a GoPro Hero 9 connected via an HDMI capture card to that same computer that's running JMRI. And I'm using HDMI over a USB camera to get higher quality. I added a member of the railroad crew to stand next to the uncoupling magnet, which helps the remote engineer see where the center of the magnets were located. One of the earlier bits of feedback was if you had a boxcar on the track in front, you couldn't really see where the center of the magnets were, or even a boxcar on, over the magnet, you couldn't really see it. So adding this railroad crew member made it easier for the remote operator to see. I chose to use the Great Northern boxcars because I'm really into circus trains, and they call this set the Great Northern. They call this set of Great Northern boxcars the circus trains. In 1956, Great Northern painted up 10 40-foot boxcars in experimental paint schemes and sent them around the Great Northern system for employee input. Some of the paint schemes were incredibly loud and garish, thus earning the moniker circus cars. In addition to the various different colors of the boxcars, I also added large numbers from a label maker on the top of the cars that match their reporting marks. This makes the cars easier to identify in the camera because you can reference both the color and the number. The boxcars were all pre-1996 micro trains, so they also needed to receive new trucks, couplers, and metal wheel sets. I also added weight to the boxcars right over the trucks, bringing them up to about 1.1 ounces. These small modifications really improved the uncoupling and coupling of the cars. The switcher that I'm using is a Broadway Limited Imports SW7 Great Northern number 163 with a Paragon 4 decoder. And just because we all want to hear that Paragon 4 sound, I've mounted a lavalier microphone directly above the switching layout to better capture all the sounds from the locomotive. So while the goal is 100% remote operations, sometimes things happen. So I do have a Discord channel that I use for when people need local support of their remotely operated puzzle, but the concept is that local intervention, even with N scale, would rarely be needed. Now that we've gone through the background and the basics of all this construction, we're now at the point that everyone's basically waiting for. How do you remotely operate this layout? A goal was to make this puzzle as easily accessible for everybody, which meant for me that I didn't want the remote operators to have to download any specific software. I didn't want them to have to download Zoom or like download some VNC client or download some, remote method of getting in. I wanted to make it as simple as possible. So I added everything to a website that can be accessed by most browsers that people already have on their computers or tablets. To log into the puzzle, you need just the link and a password. This is what the log on page will look like. For best results, I do recommend a Chromium-based browser, such as Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Opera. I have also used my iPhone and iPad, but the larger screens on the computer make seeing, especially the video, makes it a little bit easier to see everything. I changed the password as needed just to ensure that there's only 1 or 2 max operators accessing the controls at the same time. The limit is required to keep the camera latency to a minimum. The more people that log in, because it's a direct connection, the slower the connection. There are options that I can implement to allow more viewers if needed. You can run the puzzle in teams, one person logging in and operating the throttle and the other person controlling the switches. So it does have, there's not only one way to operate it. After entering the password, you get taken to this main page, or what I'm calling the main page. Currently, you're going to need to open all 3 links. You're going to need to open the camera, the throttle, and the turnouts in separate browser windows. I'm working on a solution that's going to embed all these controls into one web page. Currently, it's just not there yet. So I'm continually looking for other methods access and operate the puzzle, so things are progressing. If the remote control system is not running on this main page, you'll see the what is on that image on the left. It's kind of just that blue square, blue rectangle block. But if the system is running on the main page, you'll be able to see the camera. And all you need to do to open up the camera in a big browser is you click the hyperlink, which is the word camera up top, and it opens up this full screen view, and it is audio enabled. As I mentioned, there is a microphone on it. This camera page should open in a separate window or tab so that you can now go back to the main page and open up the throttle and switch panel. You would just click that the hyperlink, which is the word throttle up top, which then opens up the throttle page. This is the throttle from JMRI web server. You'll see the locomotive number of the Great Northern 163 on the top center of the screen. To turn the track power on, you press and hold the O in the top left corner for about 2 seconds. You can see right now that that sort of red square up in the top left. It's red when it's off, as shown in that left image, and it's green when it's on, which you can see what that looks like in the image on the right. Those red and green carets that are at the bottom are your forward and reverse for the locomotive. And all the function keys, all the F keys are enabled, and you will hear all of the sounds of the locomotive through the Camera Links audio-enabled webpage. I do ask, we are operating within yard limits, and generally I'm in this room when people are operating the layout, so I do ask that you don't need to run the bell constantly or blow the horn constantly. As much as I enjoy all the sounds, don't need to hear them constantly, but yes. They are enabled. The camera view and the switch panel do need to be on a computer or a tablet, but the throttle, there are other options. You can use Wi-Fi throttles. So if you're really into, Y throttle or engine driver, or if you have one of the TCS UWT throttles, we can also connect that up to the puzzle as well. So instead of using a computer interface, you can use your usual throttle. Back on the main page, we go back and open up the turnout panel. You press that hyperlink at the top that says turnouts. And just to reiterate, my goal is some point in the very near future to get all of this on one page so you won't have to open everything separately. The turnout panel shows the 6 turnouts, 11 through 16. You click the round circle at each of the turnout locations to change its direction. Green is basically straight, and when it's red, it's diverging. I do recommend that when you first start up the puzzle and turn on the layout, run each of the turnouts once just to make sure that the JMRI system and how the turnouts are set in reality actually line up. The turnout panel also identifies all of the potential car spots. So, this is a switching puzzle, so there will be, locations to spot cars. Mainline left's abbreviated with ML, tracks 1 through 4, just T1 through T4. And the runaround is labeled RA right there in the center. And all of these potential locations are related to the gamification of the puzzle. Gamification is a huge part of building this, and why this ease of access is so important to me is because I want people to experience the game and the fun of model railroading. So another one of the problems that I had was how I was going to gamify this, what needed to be created to do this. And I guess first I had to figure out what the challenges were going to be. So what I decided we would do is have a randomly generated list, which was based on a challenge level that you could pick, which then provided you the track location and the boxcars that needed to be spotted in each location. So let's break this down a little bit. So the challenge provides you a randomized solution that you can play, obviously, if you choose. It's essentially your work order. So based on the number of boxcars on the puzzle, the length of the spurs, and the difficulty level chosen, it could either increase or decrease your sort of, gamification of this. So typically there's 1 switcher and 7 boxcars on the layout at a time. There are 4 levels that you can choose from: apprentice, journeyman, expert, and master. We found the master level takes about an hour or so to complete. The different options provide a different quantity of boxcars that you need to spot. So, apprentice level provides you 2 boxcars that you need to spot, which is the top left image. Bottom left image is the journeyman, which is 4. In the middle is expert level, which is 6. And then master level is 7 or more. If at some point it makes sense to have more cars on the switching puzzle, then that master level will just have the maximum number. For the apprentice level, even though you only need to spot 2 cars, all 7 of the boxcars will still be on the puzzle. So you may need to move other boxcars out of the way to spot the 2 boxcars for the apprentice challenge, but you don't have to put those other boxcars in any specific location. This program was actually written by another model railroad YouTuber, Late Night Model Railroad. The script runs on a server that I run, here locally, And I do that so that the results can be shared everywhere. So while the layout that we just looked at is all for the remote operator, because it's a game and because I want to get people involved, I've also set up a way to share the playing of the game with everybody. So this is the view that I can send to YouTube. So if there are 1 or 2 operators operating the puzzle, everybody else can go to YouTube and watch what's going on. They can see, the panel, see where the turnouts are. They can see the challenge in the top left corner. And all of this is separate from the, the camera and everything else. So this doesn't affect the latency of the camera or the throttle or any of those pieces and parts. So while I'm still tweaking the puzzle to continue improving things, it is at this moment 100% operational. And because I keep tweaking things, sometimes I end up breaking more than I fix. But ultimately for me, this hobby is more about leaning into and not being afraid of breaking things. It's about trying new things, problem solving, and having a good time. So I'm working on some updates. I'm going to be adding block detection, adding turnout feedback, installing frog juicers, and also updating the website, as I mentioned, to embed all of the controls into one page. But the big change of this entire process is my newfound appreciation for operations and the mindset change that happened from this project and how it's influencing my future layout design decisions. I'm creating an expansion off of this. So I have a new expansion called the Riverside Transfer. It's going to be an N-scale point-to-point switching layout. There will be no continuous loops anymore. So the name of the layout is based on Riverside Park, which is the photo on the top right, which is the park that's right outside my window here, and the 69th Street Transfer Bridge, which is that photo on the bottom. There's going to be a staging yard, 2 industrial areas, one of the industrial areas being the remotely operated puzzle, a main yard, a car float, as well as a small town. The layout's about 22 linear feet altogether. It's all just shelf. They're all shelves. The layout is going to be designed for 2 local operators and 1 remote operator. So the puzzle can be operated as a puzzle, in itself, not connected to anything else, but the puzzle can also operate with the 2 local operators where they pass freight cars back and forth as well. Here's some additional photos of the 69th Street Transfer Bridge as it exists today. This is the last remaining transfer bridge on Manhattan, and there's now a park along the waterfront that is basically a tribute to railroading. It was the location of a New York Central yard. So when I was laid off, I looked around and decided online was becoming significantly more popular, and I wanted to be a part of it, both from a career perspective, and I had plenty of time to learn new things. And I cannot be more thankful that I found the model railroading community. Building the time saver variation is one way that I'm trying to give back to the community of model railroading and help expand what people think of model railroading. My YouTube channel and my time saver variation are both named Humanity Junction, and the H in my logo, it makes up sort of the bed where the city can rest. The city is made up of the humans. You can see the UMAN in the buildings because it really is the humans that make up a city. We're going to set up some opportunities. Jim and I have talked about, how to get other people operating the puzzle and maybe doing a small challenge or something like that. I'm not sure if people should reach out directly to Jim or to me or how we're doing it yet, but there will be more on that to come. And this is the train inspector who's taken a much needed break after this complicated project. So Jim said I could take about 45 minutes. I've taken up about 38. So I think we got a couple minutes left if anybody's got any questions.
So let me ask you this, Heath. Let's say that I want to be one of your remote operators. Exactly what do I have to do?
So I will send you a link. You will go to that link in a web browser. So I believe like you use an iPad, so you can go to Safari.
Right.
You know, click on that link and I'll give you a password and you would enter that password, which takes you to that main page that I showed you in the presentation. And
Right.
then from there, you would open, for now, you open those 3 web pages.
Right.
Turn on the track power.
Right.
And then essentially it's no different than if you were standing here right next to it. You know, you operate the throttle, you operate the turnouts, just as if you were right here.
Gotcha.
Some people like just getting on and just sort of playing and moving things around. Other people like having a challenge. So they like, you know, selecting some level of the challenge and then trying to finish the challenge. Some options for the challenge are, you know, finishing it as quickly as possible, finishing it in as few moves as possible. And those are sort of, that's some of the gamification that John Allen instilled in the time saver when he first designed it.
Gotcha. Well, listen, I don't know how we're going to do it yet either, but I like the idea of opening up to the viewers and maybe have one person a night or 2 people if they're both doing the apprentice part of it. Maybe we've got enough time for 2 people a night to be able to try it, to see exactly what's involved with this remote operation, because it is so new. And as far as I know, you're the only one that has a switching layout that's really involved in this kind of remote operation right now. All of the others are, like you say, continuous run operations, even though they may run on schedule, but they're basically continuous run operations, where yours, I think, is exciting because it gives people in a small space the operation to really get involved in operations, as you say, but also have some fun doing it if all they want to do is spend an hour or 2 switching some cars around. So I think it's a wonderful idea. And, you know, for people that can do it remote, they really don't have to have space anymore. So space for model railroader is really eliminated because they can do a lot of this remotely if the remote takes off and if the people involved today in remote operation come up with some kind of standard so that whatever remote operation railroad you're doing, you can do it basically the same way. So it's not a new learning experience every time you log into to Joe's versus Sam versus Fred's remote operation.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a place for this because there are a lot of people out there that are playing train video games. Yeah. And I think that that interface that they have with the computer and with the game, I think there's something, at least for me, something interesting about the railroad they're operating being an actual physical railroad. Right. And there's a lot of differences in that, you know, physical opportunity than, you know, the games that are there.
I agree. And when we first talked, that's what really appealed to me because of the concept of gaming that you've put it with, but also the challenges that go along with that. Because, you know, like you say, you could have teams of 2 people each going against each other and see how quickly they can do it or how long it takes to do it and so forth, or how many cars they can get moved in the right position in a given period of time. So I think there's a lot of challenges that can be done. What I know that you're due back on the 10th of August for the next session. And I'm wondering if maybe we could take that show and just go through it as if all of us are doing it, but only one person, and maybe that one person has to be you. And we put all 3 screens up and you show us one at a time. This is the button you push and this is what happens. This is the next button and this is what happens. And maybe set up a game that you can play for us and show us what's involved really in using the 3 screens that you have. And then maybe the next time, then we can actually have people on the show start participating and see how they do it. Once they get a better understanding of exactly what it takes to do it and how they have to work with your system.
Yeah, and I would definitely say too, like I know what to do. What I would think might be good for all of us is if there is somebody that has a lot of interest in it that wouldn't mind being the guinea pig and wouldn't mind doing it live, it might be interesting to walk through it with somebody that doesn't, have any experience with it.
I couldn't agree more, and we'll see if we can't find somebody now.
Absolutely.
Why don't you do this? Send me an email and I'll get in touch with Heath and we'll see how we can put this together. So if you're interested, and as he says, being the guinea pig, because you're really interested in this and want to learn how to do it, send me an email to Jim Kellow, JIMKELLOW at Newtracks Modeling, NEWTRACSMODELING.com, and we'll make sure that you get in touch with Heath, and Heath can give you some behind the scenes information before the show. But this will happen on the show on August the 10th, be the next time that Keith is back with us. So if you'd like to do this, let me know and we'll schedule you.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Heath, I can't thank you so much for coming. And I think that this is really going to be something that is really going to be a part of model railroading in the future, and may bring a lot of younger people into the hobby simply because they like to play the game. I think that's a wonderful concept. And I really do appreciate meeting you and finding out about what you're doing for the hobby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Heath, I got a quick question. You just mentioned about having at least 3 screens open. Does that mean it cannot be used on mobile devices and has to be on a computer?
So what I recommend if you're using a mobile device is that you would open, let's say, the video on an iPad at least, or a tablet at least, and then use your use a smartphone or something then for your throttle. So there's to be able to see the detail that you need to see to effectively switch the cars. I do think having as big of a possible video as possible. I think I just said the same thing twice, but I think you understood what I'm saying. Yeah, the bigger the video, the easier your life is going to be, essentially.
So you need at least 2 mobile devices for it to work.
Ideally, or at least when I did it with my dad and I talked my dad through it, he had his laptop and his phone, and we had him set up the video on his laptop and the throttle on his phone. So,
hey, understood.
Yep.
What you're really seeing on the laptop or on the one mobile device is really where the cars and engine is and where the switches are and so forth. Am I right?
Correct. Yep.
All the operation itself is going to be on your cell phone.
Yep, you can do it that way. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the only reason to have the 2 devices is you need a large as possible screenshot of the system of where the cars are, where the engine is, and where the switches and where the uncoupling wraps are, so that you can then maneuver the cars there and press the right buttons on your cell phone.
Yeah, and what we're getting into is a little bit of where the advantages of like the Silicon Valley lines or Dave Abley's Onondaga cutoff is that in their scenarios, you don't really need to see the detail and the, and have as direct of a connection with controlling the locomotive as you do when you're trying to switch in a yard.
Yeah.
Right. So, like if all I'm doing is essentially moving the locomotive forward and stopping based
Right.
on somebody else telling me when to move forward and stop, then yes, you can have limited screen space. So I do understand that while I am trying to make this as easy to access for everybody, that unfortunately one of the requirements is to have a big enough screen where you can see the couplers on the N scale boxcars to know whether they're actually connected or not.
So what we're talking about, anybody that wants to do this is going to have at least a tablet and a cell phone, or at least a laptop and a cell phone, or a computer and a cell phone. Either way, you're going to need the cell phone for the control, right? So you're going to have
you can do the control on the computer as well,
but not on the tablet.
You could do the JMRI web server has a throttle that you can load onto any sort of computer device. So on a it can be a computer, a laptop, an iPhone. You could load it onto anything, and you can use that. So you don't need a secondary device for the throttle if you have enough screen space. And we can look at that. We can look at that on August 10th as well. I've sort of set up and, one of the image that I send to YouTube is kind of how I recommend setting things up a little bit so that you can have everything on the screen and still sort of see everything. You make the throttle and the turnout small, and you make the video big,
right.
And operate it that way. So you can do it all on one device.
Now we have viewers both on YouTube and on Zoom. Can viewers from either one of that participate on the 10th of August?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you're curious, like,
because we live stream the show to YouTube.
Yeah, so this view right here, this is a live view. You can see I'm just sticking my hand in it right now, but that's the time saver running right there. And we can send that to Zoom or to YouTube or wherever. I have the technology. We can make it happen.
Okay, so we're live on Zoom, but we live stream to YouTube at the same time, and it's recorded on YouTube. So whether you're a viewer on YouTube or Zoom on August the 10th, when you're back and we're doing the first demo, the person that's doing it can be on either YouTube or Zoom. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Heath?
Heath, if I'm using your system, does someone have to wait till I'm finished to come on and use it?
Right now, the way it's set up is it's a single password. So whoever I give the password to could log in. They wouldn't kick you out if they logged in, but the video would start degrading. So like if 2, 3, 4 people started logging in, it would. But I can very quickly change the password, which then would mean I can control who can come in and out. Actually, I mean, that is one thing that I'm not a very good web developer, but I'm building a lot of this through a web page. So if there is somebody that is really good at password protected websites and could help me set something up where I could basically, the ideal scenario would be that I set up a password that a registered user could use, let's say between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, the next registered user could come in from 4 to 5. And that would be something I'd love to set up within the website. Right now, that's not the way it's set up. I have found the people that have used it so far that the model railroad community is generally very respectful of the process.
Yeah.
And we kind of self-moderate, you know, who's using it, and that only one person is using it at a time.
Thank you.
And again, if anybody would like to be the guinea pig on August the 10th, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on Zoom, if you'll just send me an email to make sure that we've got your name right and how to reach you and so forth, then you can be our guinea pig. And send me an email to jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. Heath, you have a great evening, and thank you so much again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, folks, I think that is our show for this evening. It was a little long, but I hope you enjoyed it. We covered a lot of different subjects from a lot of different angles. And I really hope that most importantly, that you learned something of use to you in your modeling. Again, our website is newtracksmodeling.com. If you want to join us on Zoom, the only way to get the login is to subscribe to our website. If you want to join us on YouTube, we hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, and click the bell so that you'll get a 30-minute notice of all of our future shows. We think that we have a very unique kind of show because there's always something different and hopefully unique that we can try to bring to your attention, and hope that it helps you in your modeling. So until next time, best of modeling to you. And now we'll go to the after show, which unfortunately, again, Mr. Clark Kooning, MMR, who normally does our after show, is fishing until the fall when he gets too cold to be on the lake. So I'm again running the after show. So I will open this up to anybody who's new to our show that hasn't been here before that would like to say something, or if there's nobody that's new, to anybody else that would like to make a comment. And if nobody wants
Okay, at ease there, Jim. Take it easy.
No? All right.
No, I have a question. I've never done anything like this CAD demonstration before. And how, for people that are watching, how did that go over? I ran that at speed I would normally work in CAD. I'm not, Onshape is not my primary system. I work mostly with Rhino. But how did it go over? What did you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. For good or bad, it scared me to death.
Okay.
I mean, if I was doubtful that I'd be able to do CAD before, it scared me to death. To see the trouble that I thought you were having and what happened to you with the knowledge and experience that you have scared me to death.
Well, you know, yeah, there's a couple of things I wasn't expecting, but overcame them very easily.
I know, but see, the problem with me is I don't think I know that I would have no idea how to overcome them. Now, that your offer of the email and being able for me to identify what my effort, and then you be able to go in and see what I did wrong and then tell me how to fix it, that is tremendous help. I mean, that's what mentoring is all about, Earl. You know that as well as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm telling you, the CAD work just scares me to death. I mean, I think about it, I think, my God, it's gonna take me a year of my life to learn how to do a simple thing here.
Okay.
Now, maybe how does everybody else feel about it? Am I crazy? I mean, come on.
Yeah, let me hear from some other folks.
You're not crazy, Jim.
There are a lot of people out there who are very hooked on this.
Oh, I agree. I understand there are, and God love them. But I'll tell you what I'm hoping that comes out of this is we get a lot of more people that get hooked on it because they're going to use Earl as their crutch to figure out how to do it. That to me is what this is all about. I think everybody tonight that saw this, that's not familiar with CAD, is scared to death. I could be crazy, but that's my feeling.
Well, Jim, did you take follow, take those commands and kick them around and play with them for 4 weeks?
No.
Okay, you should be scared.
I'm scared to death of it. I know that I am never going to be a CAD user. I know that on the front end because that's just not something that interests me. I don't have an interest to learn it. That's my problem.
Okay, that's fair.
But what I'm hoping out of this is that there are a lot of people that aren't like me that want to learn how to do the CAD, whether, and when I say CAD, whether it's either 2D or 3D. And what I'm hoping is they're going to get enough information and enough confidence with your help that they're going to spend the time and the effort that it's going to take to be able to become proficient in using it and do with it what they want to accomplish.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the next time around, should I run at my normal speed or should I slow it down, or does it matter?
I think you should run it at exactly the way you're doing it because when I was watching it, you came across very clear.
Okay, very good. Now I've been doing this for, oh gosh, more than 40 years almost now. So I'm from, all this stuff sort of comes naturally. No, not naturally, but I'm familiar with it.
Mhm.
This is not my normal operating system. And because of that, there were a couple, you can see I made a couple of mistakes. I don't know what they were. I have no idea what I did wrong. we got it back on track. Now, believe it or not, this girder bridge, although it looks complicated, from the CAD modeler standpoint, this is a very simple structure. This is really easy. It's all 90-degree angles. When you get into curves and if you're building a building, let's say a clapboard structure or something like that, it gets really nasty. So you don't, that's why I selected this as the model to build, because it shows everything you can do, but it's really very simple from a CAD standpoint. This Onshape system I'm using, they're designing jet engines in this dang on thing. I mean, they're really complicated systems that they're building on it, and we're using 1% of the capability of what that system is can do. So anyway, okay, I will the next time around I'll proceed as we did here tonight, and we'll see what happens.
I don't think speed is the problem. I think doing it the way you did it, like was just said. Earl, I thought you did a beautiful job doing the presentation. That's not the issue. The issue is are the people going to take the time that it's going to take to learn the system to be able to properly use it? That's
you're right. That's correct.
That's the key. For me, I'm not going to do that. So for me, I'm scared to death. Now, other people may be scared to death, but if they'll just spend the time, it's like any other tool. You've got to learn it before you can use it.
That's right.
And the learn time here for me is something that I am not interested in doing because I prefer other ways of modeling that I know how to do right now. And I'm having a great time doing it. And that's what I want to do. That's me personally.
Mhm.
But I think doing this and giving other people the option of becoming proficient in CAD is the way of the future. Because I'm a dinosaur, and I understand that.
Well, I'm a dinosaur too, but I just learned it 40 years ago.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying, the way that I model is not the way that in 10, 20 years, people are even going to care about learning how to model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because CAD will have taken over, 3D printing will have taken over. All of the new technologies and things that may not even be there today will have taken over and become the way people model the prototype. And I understand that. I just happen to enjoy what I learned and I think I do a pretty good job using that, even though it's the dinosaur way of doing things, but I enjoy that. And that's just me personally. But what I'm hoping that people get from you is the confidence to try, because if they do and they spend the time to learn the technology, oh my gosh, the things that they're going to be able to create in the future is just going to knock their socks off.
Yep. All righty. Well, very good. We will be back in a couple of weeks and we will do it again.
I hope that answers your question.
You answered my question very well. The comments were very good. We'll proceed as we did tonight, and I'll probably make some more mistakes, and that's fine. Yeah. Now I have to say, it took me about 6 weeks to get familiar with this system. We were on a camping trip. We're in the RV. And every night I sit down and try and build that stinking bridge, and it was frustrating. But eventually I figured it out. And to be so frustrated with the system, and Fusion 360 was even worse. It was really horrible. But here I'm so used to working in Rhino and Vellum, those formats, that switching over to this was really, really difficult. Now, somebody that's not experienced the other systems, they may actually find it easier to learn this than I did, because they don't have things to unlearn. I had to unlearn a whole lot of stuff.